All right, I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of Money Mixology. As always, I'm your host, Jason. In case you haven't noticed or you're not watching the video on this one, I am tinkering around with the new microphone just to see if it works any better, see if I like it. So bear with me, maybe moving it around a little bit here as we test it. I also want to take a chance today to start a new series. So I got a lot of positive feedback from the financial infidelity sort of mini series where we did just 2 episodes on the topic, because people, at least the emails I've received, where the positive feedback came from was the idea that they had a chance to sort of take it in the first time, hear some of the general concepts, and then have that second episode where we applied it in sort of a meaningful way to our life or to the situation that they find themselves in. So I wanted to take an opportunity to do another mini series like that, where we can talk through one topic, but we can do it over a course of a few episodes and dig in a little more specifically on the really precise, specific areas that you find interesting and that apply to pretty much everybody's life in this particular case, because what we're going to cover in this series is what's called money mindsets. The important part to take away from this is every person out there, everyone listening, everyone you've ever met in your life has money mindsets. These are effectively the hardwiring you have from your upbringing that you may not even be aware of, in most cases aren't aware of. So a lot of those things that happened in your past, and you've probably heard me speak about this in various ways in the episodes so far on the show, whether it's with a couple of my guests. The very first introductory episode I did for the whole show talked about the fact that our past influences how we view money, how we react with money, how we interact with the world of finance around us. That's all true, but it is more important than ever that we start to understand the specific mindsets we have. Now, everybody's going to have a couple of mindsets that will be a part of your financial life. And you will hear those as I talk through these scenarios, as we talk through the different ideas and the different types of mindsets you may have. Like many things in psychology, you're not really black and white, just one or the other. That's not how it works in most cases. So you're going to have bits and pieces of the different mindsets that you will recognize in yourself. However, you probably have one of the predominant ones as well. So as we talk through this, you'll start to recognize really clearly, like, that's my strong money mindset. And you'll get an idea of kind of where we're going. Before we start that, though, I did want to just throw this out there. In case you've listened to the show the whole time, I hope you've picked up on the message that my purpose for this entire show is to be able to help people get stronger at their behavioral finance and the way that they interact with their money and build their wealth. I'm not real big on self-promotion. I think that's disgusting and gross. But I have had a few people that ask me, there's been talk about the book, because I've mentioned it a couple of times on the radio show episodes. So I actually do have a book that's published on this entire thing. It is Crazy Money. So if you want to go on Amazon, Jason Moore, Crazy Money, it is available. You're welcome to get it. Most of what we cover on this show is found in the book, and there will be examples and all the brain games and things are in there. So if you enjoy the material, you can go get the book, but that'll be it for the self-promotion today, because again, that's disgusting. So let's get into the topic that's actually at hand. As we get started, I think it's really, really important for people to keep in mind or be aware of is a concept that comes, again, directly from the psychology field, which is this idea of believing your choices are correct. And this is critically important when we start evaluating our own decisions and we start looking at other people's mindsets and the decisions that come from those mindsets. Every single decision that you make in your life, and every decision everybody in the world makes in their life, they believe to be the correct decision, the best decision in that moment, the exact moment that decision is made. So you can apply this not just to money, but to every single experience, decision you have in your life. When you decide to cross the street, even though the no walk sign is up, you are factoring in a whole litany of factors to that decision. Is somebody going to see me? Are there cars coming? How far across the street is it? All of these things. Knowing that it's technically illegal to walk when the sign says do not walk, but you do it anyways. In that exact moment that you made the decision, you believed it was the best decision for whatever reason. Now, you could be halfway across the street and quickly realize this was not the best decision. In hindsight, I have made a mistake. This often happens with many of our choices. But when you make the decision, you believe it to be correct. This is important because we tend to view and judge other people's financial decisions based on how we would have perceived the situation or what we believe to be best. And we give this connotation to that decision as if the person making the choice was actively trying to make a bad decision, right? So when someone who doesn't have a lot of money, is of lesser means, buys something that we don't believe they can afford, and we cannot fathom, why would you make that bad decision? You had to know it was a bad decision. Yes, in hindsight, they might accept that. But at the moment of purchase, their brain, for whatever variety of reasons, believed that was the best decision in that moment. So we have to give people a little bit of grace to understand we all do that. Okay, and this is important as we talk through these mindsets because the money mindsets are going to establish the context, the initial hardwiring in our brains, right? They're running this programming in our computer brain that we are in most cases unaware of, and it is influencing those moment decisions we have to make in a specific moment in time. So I want you to be aware of that and keep it in mind for both yourself, give yourself a little bit of grace, and also providing a little bit of grace to other people when you're evaluating their decision making, especially when it comes to finance. Again, it applies to all areas of life, but for the purpose of this channel, of course, we focus on money. The most popular or common example of the mindset mentality or the mindset research comes from Dr. Brad Klontz down in Texas, and he is actually a psychologist who is also a financial planner. He's kind of considered one of the godfathers of this whole movement of looking at behavioral finance, but he is by trade comes from the science side, the non-money side, the psychology side. Because of that, he created what is called the money scripts. So you may have heard of that. It's in this field, it's sort of the common vernacular that we use. And there are 4 money scripts. However, I'm going to be the outcast, if you will, from my own field. I actually don't like the money scripts. I think they are all negative. They all require therapy of some kind. And so it is very much, in my opinion, and to be clear about this is my opinion only. My opinion, these are viewed entirely through a negative lens. That it matter which of the 4 scripts you have, again, this sort of programming code that's running in the background because of your upbringing, whichever of those scripts you have, there's a therapy solution to it, which just gives it a very negative lens to look at the situation through. And I don't love that concept. But I do like the underlying argument behind it, the underlying science that goes into this, which is to essentially say that we all have these behaviors that play out over time, and they are, to use the word script, they are scripted based on what our background is. So we come in with these scripts already built to every situation, every context we find ourselves in when it comes to money. And we just run the script, if you will, and that drives a lot of the outcome behavior. So I agree with the general premise. I just don't love that negative sort of lens that we have to look at all situations through when you consider it from that perspective. It makes more sense when you realize that this was developed by someone who specializes in therapy. And so that would logically make sense that they would view things as people have an issue. I have to find a way to treat it with therapy. That all ties and all kind of tracks. It just doesn't jive with the way I would prefer to approach the situation with a lot of people. So we're going to look at mindsets from a very different angle for this little mini series. We're going to look at essentially 4 different kinds of mindsets that you can have. And these are not, to be clear, these are not necessarily related. This is not like you're either this, you're this, you're this, or you're this. These are more holistic approaches that people will have. So the first one, and this is one that's been mentioned on the show a number of times, and it's kind of the reason I chose to do this mini series, which is the poverty mindset. So this is really prevalent and it has very distinct behavior patterns. So if you were raised in poverty, you will have very distinct behavioral patterns because of that when it comes to your money. We'll have a whole episode on that. We have this concept of new money versus old money. And what that means is people who now have wealth, did it come from new money, meaning they earned it from your first generation type of situation? Or is it old money, meaning your family has had money for generations? You were raised with money. So there's very, very big differences in how people treat money based on those circumstances. The third one is when people have what's called money privacy issues or money privacy mindset. So this is the sort of extreme version. Everybody likes to be somewhat private or at least protective of their financials. That makes some sense. But when you get to an extreme level, it starts to hinder some of the relationship dynamics. So we'll talk about that piece. The final one, you have to understand from different perspectives, given the person's role in the family, is what's called the provider mindset. So again, to be very stereotypical here, this is traditionally thought of as a male issue because in most cases, at least traditionally in the United States, the father worked, the mother would stay at home. Now that has clearly shifted in the last 20 years, to be sure. And so the reason I wanted to cover it was, one, because it is very prevalent in the male population, but it's also because it's becoming increasingly more prevalent in the female population. And I'm not sure that either gender has any idea how to solve it or has been very good at overcoming it. The provider mindset is essentially, in a nutshell, your personal worth is equal to the money you bring into the household. Your net worth is your worth, is another way to say it. This can be really destructive to your sort of personal pride, your ability to view yourself in a positive light. It's the way you present yourself to others, and it becomes a little bit detrimental to the family dynamic and then to your own mental health if you allow this provider mindset to get out of control. So we're going to talk through that. So those are 4 different, again, when I say mindsets, these are sort of these background scripts that are running that put you in a place where every situation you encounter with money, you're reacting in a predictable, behavior-based way, knowing that this is all sort of happening in the background. And if you can understand it, if you can learn about it, if you can recognize which mindset you're operating under, you can take proactive steps to overcome it, to break that cycle, and to help monitor a little bit of your behavior. You probably won't completely re-hardwire the mindset you have. Again, it's deeply embedded scripting from your upbringing, from your childhood, those kind of things. So you're probably not going to entirely overcome it or completely change it. But if you are aware of it, you can at least take the steps to move forward a little bit with it. The reason that specifically want to cover all of these mindsets, in this case, these 4, is because I believe really strongly in using this channel to help couples and families get stronger with their finances. And in order to do that, you not only need to understand your mindset, you need to understand your partner's mindset. And in some cases, try your best to at least be aware and understand, are we giving a mindset to our children? Are we, by our actions, our behavior, are we transmitting some sort of message that we perhaps don't mean to down to our children? So for quick example, if you are a father who has the provider mindset really strongly and maybe to some level too much, you may be sending the signal to your young sons that their only value in the world is what they can provide from a monetary perspective, a financial perspective. That's probably not what you mean to tell your sons, but if you're treating your own self that way, they're going to pick up on that messaging. And so we want to talk through each of these 4 mindsets so that you can get better for yourself. You can help your partner identify it, and you can understand your partner, sort of their context, where they're coming from, why they're making their decisions. And also the 2 of you can be much more careful with the messaging you are passing to the children, to the next generation, so they don't end up with these toxic mindsets. So that's where we're headed for the next number of shows. I hope you continue to join me. I think these can be really powerful. And if you have any questions, or when the series is over, if you are finding yourself being really clearly like, I am this mindset, and I think I may have a problem with this mindset, please feel free to reach out to me and we'll try to connect, and I'll try to get you some resources. On each episode, I will discuss some general things you can do to help with these mindsets if they've gone too far, to help offset it a little bit. But to be clear, these require a level of therapy, which I cannot do through a talking head style video where I don't know your situation, your circumstance, your context. So I can give some generalizations, but if you need more specialized treatment or more individual treatment, there are some steps, there are some tools, there are some resources, there are some people out there that I can connect you with who can help you walk through this. So that's the journey over the next few episodes. I hope you join me. And until then, have a wonderful time, and I'll see you for our next episode.